today in our Stress and Overwhelm month, we're talking to Sam Gilbert. Sam, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello everyone. So I'm Sam. I live down in Wiltshire actually, and I'm what you would probably call a mindset or a life coach. I also do lots of other things, but I specialise mainly in ladies who are suffering with sort of anxiety or feelings around anxiety and overwhelm, overthinking, all those sorts of things that stop us from doing stuff and stop us from achieving goals. And especially around Christmas, it's a very hot topic, I think. So.
Absolutely. And you've led me on perfectly to my first question. So in the run up to Christmas, it can be so easy to feel overwhelmed. Do you have any sort of hints and tips for people to just keep that at a manageable level?
Yeah, and I think the first thing that comes to my mind is it's okay to say no as well sometimes, because I think we take so much stuff on because of being the woman in the family. We think we have to look after everything, do all the cooking, buy all the presents, and it can lead to so much overwhelm and anxiety. So, and we all have a list, obviously, so I can probably guarantee most people have written a big list down of all the things they need to buy. And I use something called an accountability list, and I just write down on the side all the things I perhaps need to do. And then I might do the days of the week above, across the top, and then I'll tick off the things that I have done. And when you get to the end of the week, and you might see a sort of a pattern forming over, if you put, say, a green tick in, you've done it. If you put a red cross in, you haven't managed to do it. So by the end of the week, it could be, is that really so important? Do I really need to do that? And then maybe some of those things could drop off the list that you don't actually really need to do. You think you need to do it, but perhaps you actually don't. So that's it's very simplistic, but it's actually quite a powerful way of doing a list. So you can see perhaps what you can, and maybe you could like drop off the list sort of thing at the end of the week. So yeah, that helps me anyway. So
we are all terrible for putting this list of everything that we might conceivably ever need to do, aren't we? And actually, as you say, some things you consistently don't do them, so they probably don't matter, do they?
Yeah, exactly. And I think we get caught up in this, I don't know, buying presents for God knows how many people, and what are they going to like and not like, and it's, for me, it is such a stressful time, and I think a lot of people probably feel the same way, and it's one day a year, and lots of people really love Christmas, which is brilliant, and they really look forward to it and everything, but great, but try not to get yourself really overwhelmed by it. So drop the things you perhaps don't really need to do, or give them to someone else to do for you. Don't think you have to take it all on yourself. Maybe your partner or your husband can actually step up and do a bit more, or if they don't already, or maybe your children can help out in a different way. Or don't think you have to take it all on yourself, because that's where the anxiety will kick in, and then overwhelm and overthinking kicks in, and then you actually stop yourself from doing these things because you get in such a tizzy over it. But it's just your mind, kind of, your thoughts kick in, and your mind is telling you to slow down. So when you start to feel anxious, or you start to feel the overwhelm, it's almost your brain giving you a warning signal to say, for God's sake, slow down, for God's sake, drop the things you don't need to do, or give that to someone else to do. So it's like a warning sign, when you start to feel that sort of anxiety and overwhelm, really. So.
Yeah. And I suppose it's worth reminding ourselves it doesn't have to be perfect.
Exactly. And you know what, that word perfect, it almost puts the hairs on the back of my neck up. It's kind of like for me, perfection just doesn't exist. And I classed myself as a perfectionist for God knows how many years. I mean, I before I turned to coaching, I was a construction project manager in retail. And it was all about being a perfectionist. I used to refit and build stores, or manage the building of the stores, and it had to be perfect. And you never reach that perfection, because you just keep striving for it, and you think you get there, and then something else isn't quite right. So you're always striving. It's a bit like that goalpost just keeps moving, and you never reach it. So it's okay if the tree is not quite straight, or it's okay if the presents are not quite wrapped properly. It doesn't matter. it's so, again, that's I think where it can lead to so much overwhelm and anxiety, because you think everything needs to be perfect, a perfect dinner, a perfect outfit, a perfect haircut, you know, a perfect present, whatever. It doesn't have to be like that. And then if you can step away back from that a little bit, I think the anxiety then will sort of ease a bit as well. So yeah, you definitely don't need to be perfect. It doesn't exist. Perfection does not exist. So it's a myth. It's a myth.
And moving on from that, of course, then there's the financial stress as well, isn't there? Which,
yeah,
that's a biggie.
Totally huge. Yeah, I mean, there's been so many programs on the television recently, you know, about how to save money wisely and stuff, and how to not spend too much. And I think it's this whole social media doesn't help, because, you know, children see things on the television, adverts, and then they want those particular toys or items, but they have no concept of the cost of it, you know. And I think it's a tough one, because obviously the parents want to keep their children happy on Christmas Day, but it's okay also to not have to spend too much money on them, you know, and don't get yourself into debt over it and then be paying for the rest of the year, you know, to cover the costs. So and I think there was, what I've liked recently, I've been hearing more and more about giving a gift that you've made, or, because I do quite a lot of baking, so this year I'm going to be giving little hampers of stuff that I've made myself. And it's then stopped me from having to wander around the shops or trawling online to try and find something to give to that particular person. So I'm going to be making stuff this year, which I think is more thoughtful, and you know, you put perhaps your own effort and sort of time into it, which I think is quite nice. So yeah, there's no point in getting into debt over it. It's not an easy one, because you know, you feel you need to buy a present for everybody and keep them all happy, but yeah, there's no point in getting yourself into debt over it. So find other ways of maybe giving less to someone, or agreeing with them that you're only going to be spending £15-20 on somebody or whatever, you know. And it's not about the value, it's about, you know, the gift itself maybe. So yeah, there's always different ways around these things. So
yeah. So just moving away from Christmas specifically, and just going back to stress and overwhelm as a more sort of general thing, I know outside of this recording, you and I have both talked about how we use our language to ourselves. I wonder if you'd like to just sort of expand on how language impacts on our internal sort of stress and overwhelm.
Yeah, totally. That's a really good one, because we I think probably we as women, we do this to ourselves a lot as well. So we will use very negative language around ourselves, you know, and not just when we speak, but I see it in posts on Facebook and all sorts as well, where people will say things like, I'm too scared to do that, or I'm fearful that I'll be judged, or I can't do that because I don't have the skills, or whatever it might be. We are very judgmental of ourselves. And as soon as you start using that type of language, when it becomes quite negative, then that's almost how you show up to the world, in like a negative way. I suppose if I could give you an example, if you were going to a party or something, say it's a Christmas party or whatever, nothing fits you in the wardrobe, you've been trawling around the shops to try and buy an outfit, and you don't like anything. So you make up in your head about, I can't go to the party because I'll be judged, no one will like me, everyone will laugh at me, I won't feel comfortable in my outfit that's really old in the wardrobe or whatever. And you start to make these stories up in your head about what might happen. And 9 times out of 10, those things don't happen. You've just made it all up in your own head as a big drama. And I think when you start listening to that language, or you listen to those thoughts that kick into your mind, and you believe them, that's when you start to put yourself on a downer, if that makes sense. You know, you really start to believe those negative thoughts, and then you think that that's your life and that's how you're going to be as a person. Utterly not true at all. 100% not true. You know, those thoughts just kick in sometimes to remind us that we maybe need to do something differently, or we've got something scary to, maybe, well, not even scary, but something to face that we might feel scared about, but actually it's not scary. Those thoughts are there to protect us, but as soon as we start believing those negative thoughts, that's when the anxiety, overwhelm, and all that kind of stuff kicks in. And this might not resonate with some, but I think we love a label. You know, we love to label things, and I think as a society, we've come up with all these different labels, like I feel anxious, or I've got imposter syndrome. And I heard another one the other day, it's called tall poppy syndrome, which I'd never heard before. And I thought, oh no, not another label that we can kind of sort of sit behind. And I do think as a nation, and through social media and stuff like that as well, we like to hide behind a label, you know, and for me that's not a good thing. It's kind of you need to face your fears, you face your anxieties. It's not always easy, but we all have the power inside us to go and do these things and reach our goals and face our fears and everything else, you know. And yeah, so yeah, I quite waffly, but I hope that sort of answers it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing that's interesting is that in perimenopause, a lot of women do start to feel anxious and stressed differently to how they previously did, because so many things are changing. And it can be quite a tough one to sort of work through in the first instance, because it's new feelings, you know. But as you say, actually putting a label on it and then that becoming your life going forward can be quite a restrictive thing, can't it?
Yeah, quite debilitating as well, I think. And I totally get the whole perimenopause. I mean, I didn't go through peri, I went straight into menopause or through a hysterectomy, but the whole perimenopausal, I think with the hormone imbalances, once you get that sorted out with whichever route you want to go down, then it starts to balance it out a little bit. But it's almost like, again, and this might not go down well with some ladies, but it's almost like another label, you know, I'm perimenopausal now, therefore I've got anxiety. And yeah, you are going to feel differently because your hormones might be out of balance. I totally get that. But anxiety is anxiety, you know, you can still break through that. You can still sort of push it out the way. You can still conquer it, you know, as long as you realize that anxiety is just a thought and a feeling. That's all it is. It's kind of a way, it's a warning system to make you realize that you've got to do something different, or you've got to face up to something. You know, I mean, if you wanted to, you know, if I said to you, Emily, you need to go and be a public speaker by the end of next week, you know, that might put the fear of God in some people if they've never done that before. But you ultimately, you can do it, 100% you can do it, you know. And it's not necessarily about believing in yourself, but we all have the ability really to get up on stage if we really, really want to, you know. And it's not going to be easy for some, but it's just so that anxiety and the thoughts kick in to just show us that we've got to face something, you know, we've got to face it head on. And if we keep believing in those thoughts or that anxiety, we won't achieve that. We'll just sit back and go, I can't do it. My mind's telling me I can't do it, therefore I can't do it, you know, and I'm never going to achieve it. And that's just your thoughts telling you that. You're believing those thoughts, therefore you're not going to achieve those things. So stop believing those thoughts, and then you can progress towards achieving bigger things.
It's really interesting because what you've just said there ties in with what's come up in so many of the other webinars that I've recorded, which basically, in a nutshell, perimenopause and menopause is a time for us to face, you know, our body is finally telling us the things that we need to face up to change so that the second half of our life is brilliant. And if we choose not to listen to those warnings, then yes, we'll end up down the rabbit hole of stress, or end up down the rabbit hole of any of the other horrible side effects. But with a bit of self-care and a bit of just looking at what it is that's making us feel bad in whatever way, it's amazing how our hormones are actually kicking in and saying, right, okay, come on, enough now, let's change.
Yeah, exactly that. And I, you know, I think since I've been doing the coaching, there's two groups of people for me since I've been doing the coaching, and no disrespect to the ones that don't want to change, but there is a group of people that feel they need to be fixed, or that their brain is wired differently, which isn't the case at all. You know, it can be if it's medically, you know, diagnosed, then that totally get that. But generally, you'll have one camp of people that think they need to be fixed, or they need to be treated, or they're wired differently, but they don't actually want to put the effort in to make any change in themselves. And they sit in this kind of black cloud, negative sort of space. And then they end up on antidepressants, unfortunately, or they take anxiety medication or whatever it might be, because they get so rock bottom that their only alternative maybe is to go to the GP and get some sort of medication, which to me is not the answer. It just masks the issue, if you like. It kind of puts a big sticky plaster over the issue. I prefer to rip the plaster off and try and tackle it in a different way without medication. And then you get the other sort of camp of people that still want to make a change, but are so willing to show up and do something about it, and not buy into the negative thoughts or perhaps the symptoms that they're going through. They want to make a change because, I'm 51 now, so I'm way over half my life. I don't know how many years I've got left. My mum died at 70, so if by any chance I die at the same age, I've got 19 years left on this planet, sort of thing. So it's kind of, and it really puts it into perspective, I think, when you lose a parent at a certain age, or when you lose a friend at a certain age, or whatever. And you think, and I'm not trying to be morbid here, because obviously life is about living, totally, but I really think it puts it into perspective. And I think when you get to menopause age, you think, actually, this is a time of life to maybe change something about your life. Are you in a job that you really hate? Is it now chance or time for you to perhaps look at that and change it if you can financially? Or have your children left home by now, so therefore, maybe you can start a side business or a side hobby or something you've always wanted to do, and don't just sit back and let life pass you by, because life is about living. And yeah, we have up and down days. We all have, we can't all be happy all the time. That's just not possible. So we all have up and down days, but don't let the down days become your life for the rest of your life, if that makes sense. So yeah,
absolutely. And that ties in exactly with what I was saying, that the opportunity we're given while our hormones are all over the shop is this amazing opportunity to ditch the stuff that's not working for us, so that we go forward happier. And as you say, that might mean changing your job, it might mean changing a relationship, it could mean any number of things, but actually it's a chance to completely take stock. Right, what is really stressing me out? What is a constant source of stress for me? It needs to go.
Yeah, totally. And as you were just saying that, I was thinking, it's not always easy for every woman in a relationship to do something about it, because I'm also working with a charity with that works with teenagers and also women that are in abused relationships. So I do some coaching and mentoring with that as well. And it's very difficult sometimes for a woman in an abused relationship to try and get out of it, no matter how much she tries to change her mindset. So, and some of the ladies watching this, they might, hopefully not, but they might be in that situation. And I totally get it's very difficult sometimes for ladies to get out of that sort of environment, or even with a change of mindset probably wouldn't help. So, but generally, I think if you're in a position and you for years you felt, I don't know, stressed or unhappy, or because I've been through that myself with my job, so I changed my job because it just didn't resonate with me anymore. I've been doing it a long time, so I retrained as a coach to help other people. I really wanted to make a difference, and I did that. I left my job, and didn't have any money coming in, so I just decided to try and do that. So maybe now is a chance to do something you've always wanted to passionately do, and I make cakes on the side as well, because that's another passion of mine. So it's kind of, what can you do to fulfill that empty void maybe that's been like that for a long time? And this is a time to refocus, get your symptoms in check, do what you need to do to manage those symptoms, whether it be eat well, exercise, drink water, no alcohol, whatever you need to do that. But then also look at what else you can perhaps do to put that fire back in your belly. It's kind of, what have you always wanted to do? Fly an airplane, or I don't know, jump out of an airplane, whatever it might be. Why can't you go and do it? You can achieve these things. So.
Awesome. I think on that note, I'm going to just say thank you very much, Sam. That's been really, really interesting.
You're welcome, Emily. Thanks for having me. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.